Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to our Town Hall Cafe, Los Angeles. We're here again this evening with Jamal Jones and also with Kathy Guyton. And we had a wonderful time, last time getting started with our cafe series. And I just wanted to open it up again with an inspirational quote from one of my heroes, Nelson Mandela. There is no passion to be found playing small in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. And it seemed like he was talking about, it's all about attitude and it's also it's about strategies. And I think this is something that we can all take with us going into 2018. Well, again, just to recap what we were talking about last week, Jamal and Kathy, we were going back and forth, but I sort of kind of gathered some of the main points that we went over. And it seemed like we wanted to talk a lot about how the system works, local, state, and federal government, and especially our participation in it. We want to talk more about city development and planning and what exactly is the timetable. And also, we also want to invite local and national guests. And housing, which is a very big topic, not only here in Los Angeles, but also all over the country. And gentrification, which is happening all over the country also. And a big portion of our community, I think, is economics. Who can we really rely on in these following years? And again, education and elderly. So, Jamal, what's happening in your world?
Well, I see you have this flyer here. I know there was a meeting,
yes.
Right?
Can I show this? Oh.
Yeah, they had a resist gentrification meeting. I believe that was it last weekend?
Right.
Right. So I went there for a second just to kind of check it out. I know Damian Goodman, I believe, is one of the gentlemen that actually organized it. And again, my purpose of going was just to kind of get an ear of what the community was feeling, what they thought about the success of it. I was hearing a lot of great feedback. I think generally what a lot of folks were discussing is regard to what the action plan is going to be in regard to gentrification and what does it really mean. And a lot of folks, again, were excited because of the awareness. Mm-hmm. I think that was one of the bigger things I was hearing. Folks were like, okay, we need more folks aware of what's happening nationally in regard to that. But again, it's a very complicated topic. And, my sentiment on that, I don't know what Kathy's sentiment on that is, but in regard to gentrification is that with the economic piece is how do we get our individual citizens to not be affected by that, because it's a lot of it is as a result of capitalism. So I know a lot of the things we talk about are housing, rent prices, but at the end of the day, it seems to be that we're not very competitive with the market. So how do we do that, and what does that look like? I don't know. That's my thing. Mm-hmm. Is it going to be sustainable? Homelessness, the same thing. We're building housing for our homeless. But in this market, are they going to be able to sustain it because of jobs? Are they going to be able to sustain it? The rent's going to go up, but are there jobs out there for them to do that? The mayor recently spoke about the students that are going to be graduating from the colleges, and that's the concern with them, is that what are they going to do if they want to stay in the city of LA if they're coming out of college with all of this debt and the prices are so high? So it's a complicated topic, and it's good for conversation. I don't know what you think about that, Kathy.
Well, we talked about it in a earlier meeting that we had. My problem with the rent is kicking out the people who have lived in the community so long. So it's basically telling them they no longer belong in the community that they grew up in,
right?
That they were raised in. And so you have, Jamal is saying that we have to bring up the the job market and have people be paid enough to afford the rent. But I'm saying that the rent needs to be regulated to what the people can afford now, because the jobs aren't going to come as fast as you can put regulations on the because it doesn't make sense to raise the rent so much that the people who've been living here for years, the people who voted these people into office, cannot afford it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was something that was on the KPCC, and I caught the tail end of it, so I didn't really get the professor's name, but it was a professor from UCLA who was talking about how, I think it was 20 to 30 years ago, the city should have been investing in low income housing like 30 years ago. And he said, what we're dealing with now is the fact that there was not an investment. And so now you're seeing more homeless. Now you're seeing what's happening now. But he said, now it's time to play catch up. But he's like, I don't know how we're going to do that. Like, I don't know how we're going to play catch up if, again, 20, 30 years ago, this is what should have happened, and the city is just way behind when it comes to their affordable housing. So, again, if there's, someone listening out there that, wants to look into that, we're going to look into that as well. But it'd be nice to have that guy come on the show.
Yeah, it's very,
I need to call
perfect.
KPCC and find out who that guy is, because that would be great to have him kind of speak a little bit more about that, because it was, again, the tail end of it was interesting that he was saying that there was not that
Because
investment.
there has to be some kind of strategy or plan in stopping this. I mean, even
Right.
on the some type of policy that could be implemented, or maybe a big economic push in the community in terms of getting the jobs to meet the demand.
Right.
Because the equation is not coming out nice.
Right. It's not. I mean, the face of this, we have, in my job, we have one of our new hires. She's 25, and she just graduated from UCLA, and she was saying, hey, I was looking for a one bedroom. It was $1,600. And she's just, just to kind of put in perspective, demographics or whatever, she's white and Caucasian. And she was saying, I don't know, hey, this is going to be rough for me. This is ridiculous. It's $1,600 for a one bedroom, and it's going to be really tight. And it's just, this is where I think last time, I don't remember if I mentioned this, it's like we talk about gentrification, but, it's affecting everyone, white, black, Asian, Latino, everyone's being affected by what's happening in regard to these prices going up. One of the things I think we mentioned in our meeting last time was about productivity versus what we'll be paying in wages, how productivity has been so high,
Right.
In regard to like Apple and all these other companies that are making billions of dollars, but then the wages that are going down and trickling down to the middle class and the workers is nothing. So it's like, what are we going to do in regard to stuff like that? We've got people coming out of college, but it's like, how much money are they making to compete? Like, inflation is going up, but what are the salaries reflective of what's going on in regards to inflation? It's not balanced out. So it's a complicated deal. I mean, I think we're gonna have to tackle it on multiple levels. I mean, the housing, of course, and what can be put in place, because we have to stop the bleeding, because it's just going to continue. And I don't know, like, this is people's homes. So I don't know.
And to piggyback on what Jamal just said about the jobs, a girlfriend of mine, were just talking about this not too long ago. The fact that when you look at job descriptions nowadays, what you could actually get hired for with just a high school diploma, they're now asking for masters.
Right.
They're asking for master's degrees for administrative assistants. Really?
Yeah.
They're asking for, PhDs for jobs that, like 10 years ago, they'd be recruiting people from, just out of college for.
Right.
So because this is an employer market right now, they can basically ask for anything that they want, and people are so desperate for jobs that they'll do it. Like, you'll have a doctorate working as a program manager because they need that job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's just not sustainable. I mean, over a period of time, I mean, you can just get so far with the housing, and
let's not talk about the loans that they had to
Right.
take out to get all of this education. So basically, you're paying me half of what I should get, and then I can't afford like $1,600 for a 1-bedroom, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, let's see what other parts of the country is saying about this crushing effect that's happening to our communities. I'm going to call Dr. Karen McCrae. She's from Washington, D.C., and she's a political talk show host in Washington, D.C., and they talk about some of the same issues that we're beginning to talk about here in Los Angeles. So I'm going to dial her up via my cell phone and have her chime in on our conversation. So, okay, here we go. Okay, we have Dr. Karen McCrae from Washington, D.C. She is a political talk show host. And Dr. McCrae just called you, and we're trying to get some national flavor here in our conversation. And so what is the state of affairs in our country, and how it pertains to our communities? I'm trying. I know. Okay, I'm trying to.
Where do we start? I think that one of the things that we have to be careful in our community as we see the rollback of Obama-era policies that still weren't 100% with respect to where we should be as a community, but at least we made strides. Right now, we're seeing the clock roll back with the election or pending election. Hopefully not, but it looks like all the data supports that Roy Moore is going to be elected in Alabama. But the normalizing of abnormal behavior and the unconscionable. I think that we as a community have to face facts. One of those facts is that elections have consequences, and those who think it is politically correct or astute or good policy to sit out an election are beginning to see, hopefully, the consequences of that. We have to vote. We may not like it. We may not like everything the Democratic Party does or this, that, and the other, but what is the alternative? I think when you see in 2016 the disproportionate number of folks that voted for Bernie and Jill Stein, that was the margin. Hillary Clinton lost by 70,000 votes between Wisconsin, Ohio, I think Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. That's us. And we see voter suppression. The effects of that as well, too. In your home city, you had 200,000 people that were disenfranchised in Wisconsin. I mean, and Milwaukee, that makes a difference.
Right.
That makes a difference, you know. So I think going forward, we not only have to vote and register to vote, but we have to vote our interest. Period. And I'm still looking for, I talk about it on my show all the time, I'm still looking for the 11% of black folks that voted for Donald Trump. I want to know them by name.
Who are these people?
Who are these people?
Right. Right.
But yeah.
So, I had a question for you. So I kind of heard you earlier talking about kind of like a worst of two evils kind of a situation where like there's folks that are unhappy with the Democratic Party, but what's the alternative, which would be, Trump. How do you think we can get away from that model where it's like, I remember during the election, that was a conversation a lot of people had, was the worst of two evils, and we don't really have a lot of options. It's like, how do we get away from that where the American people really can feel confident to say, you know what, it's not like an either or situation, but we can actually feel confident in the actual elected person that we put in office. I just think that we're given these options, and the political process is the political process, but how do we get to a point where we can say we are confident in the person that we want to choose?
I think that, I'm not one of those, even when, Pat, when we worked in politics more frequently, we welcome the input of younger voices. And we were mentored by people that welcomed us. I don't know what happened, but I think that one of the philosophies that I've always adopted is working from the inside. Just as you have in our community in particular, the pop-up churches, you got 2 or 3 churches on every other block because somebody didn't like what the pastor was saying, or they got kicked off of the usher board or something like that. We can't do that in this political system,
right?
Because that divide and conquer mentality got us here. So I'm of the opinion, let's work within. But you know what? Don't wait until the presidential election. It starts down ballot. It's school board. It's police sheriff. It's local city council. It's state legislators.
Right.
That's where it begins. And then find out who the players are, because that's where the action is, on the lower level. So by the time we get to the presidential level, then you have a say, because now you're a delegate.
Right.
You're not from the outside bouncing in, and now you get to understand how the system works. We see whether it was whoever it is. I understand, let's bring somebody, a fresh set of eyes onto something. But you can see what happens when you don't have a level of experience. Obama grew into his 8 years. He grew into the position, but he didn't. That first year was rough,
right,
for him, because he didn't have that experience. But he was smart enough to surround himself with people who did,
right,
and learn. Similarly, we can't go in and say, we don't like the choices, so we're going to sit this one out. Or our person didn't get elected because, we're going to sit this one out. The example was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. She was within inches in 2008. But what did she do? She stepped aside and threw her support behind Barack Obama. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, they were still angry. But Bernie was never a Democrat and never understood how the democratic process worked because he wasn't a Democrat. As a result, he had the responsibility, in my opinion, to educate his people about how the system works.
right.
And if you have a problem with the system, work within it to change it. Don't come in there. Keep the church example in mind. When you've got 12 churches in a 12-block radius, there goes your community. Because now you're not having a place where everybody congregates and gets the information consistently like we used to.
So, Karen, basically you're saying that we need to revamp our whole entire thought process regarding our communities.
I think so. And we've had offline conversations, but I'm still of the opinion that those of a certain generation that were the recipients and beneficiaries of all of the strides that were made in the 60s and early 70s dropped the ball to the extent where our kids don't understand that they're standing on someone's shoulders. And they have been brought up with this sense of entitlement and this kind of helicopter disposition that they don't have to work for anything. I had the good fortune of being personal friends with John Lewis and his wife Lillian. I learned from the master one of the things his wife Lillian was said, she passed a few years ago, but I'll never forget. When she had to surprise her husband, he was an honoree down in Atlanta for one of the award shows, and she said, "Before he was my husband, he was my hero." Because of what he stood for, the sacrifice that he made.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jamal.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I think some of the sentiment that I'm hearing in regard to, be it on the Democratic side, on the Republican side, is the political process itself needs to be, I know you said, I think you mentioned something in regard to how do we change the system from within, or how do we change the system or whatever. I think there is a frustration with the process. I can say at a local level, there's somewhat of a frustration with the process. I think those that have been involved with the political process have been in it and seen it and how it works and understand what it takes to become an assembly member, a council member, a senator. There's PACs. There's friends that there's people you need to meet. And a lot of times, if you're not in that, you're not going to win. And when it comes to winning, if it's about winning, you've got to play the game. And I think that is that democracy when it comes to things like that, where, you're groomed, or if it's a person who was your chief of staff who's now going to run for, board of supervisors or something like that, or run for Senate. But this is someone that's inside your camp, as opposed to the people saying, okay, we have selected a candidate that the people want to become the next mayor. Or is it a situation where the PAC says, we have selected someone that we want? Because this is, and I believe this. I mean, this is how it works. Well, let's say, like Garcetti says he wants to be the mayor. Like someone's going to say, wants to run for president. It's like, okay, so we have an idea of someone who we want to be the next president. The people don't say that. It's usually the PAC or the DNC or the Republican Party. And the people don't even know who this person is. And then they sell the person, and that's how they get elected, as opposed to empowering the people to say that you have the power to say, we're going to uplift our leader to say, this person is going to be my next city councilman because we know this person. Or, we've brought this person, we've groomed this person, we've prepared this person. But then the argument would be, oh, well, this person doesn't know the game and they're not going to win. They're not going to be successful because they don't know how to maneuver the political process, which is the game. And I think that's where we have to get into discussion in regard to what that game, what it's defined as, and the money part of it, because again, how much it takes to run for president, how much money it takes to run for mayor, how much money it takes to run for city council. If Jamal Jones right now had $40 million, I'd probably win something, $50 million, whatever it is, just because you can run that kind of campaign. Right, it takes money to do it, not so much the people. And I think that's where the future of politics and what we move forward is changing that process and how it works.
Yeah. And I think the shift is happening.
Right.
I think what we went through in the 2016 election, I don't think we're going to see the same landscape again. I think especially the younger people, the millennials, I think they're looking at their future, which does not look so hot.
Right.
And they want to understand, like, no. It's about we, the people.
Right.
And if we're going to change anything, we're going to have to take some onus with ourselves, because this isn't working.
No.
Locally, statewide, because the results are not there.
Right. Because, again, it goes back to a statement that it was reported to me in regard to money in politics. It's like, this was given to me about black politicians. They said, and I don't know if this is true or not, so all you folks out there, please look and, do your due diligence. I'll do my due diligence as well. It just came to me. I'm sorry I didn't have any of the evidence in front of me, but or the data. But what was told to me was that, like with oil companies, right, locally, that they will look towards a black elected official because it's so hard to raise money to run. So they will go to them because they feel like it's easier for them to lobby to that person because it's so hard to get the money in order to get a seat. So they tend to lean towards looking for the black politician on our local level. These are our
Right.
local politicians.
Right.
And they can move them a lot easier than any other politician. That's what was told to me by someone who was also a political strategist. I'm not going to say that person's name, but they told me that it's what. So it's like this is where we have these. This is where it's like, democracy, and we look at the Hillary Clinton, we look at the Bernie Sanders, we look at Trump, we look at what we had in front of us, we look at what happened with that election, and we looked at what happened with the DNC. We looked at what happened with the DNC was divided. The Democratic was divided, and they lost. That's what happened. How did that happen? And it's like, and how did that happen? That's the thing. Is how did that happen? And to look at it for the folks out there. And I just had a conversation with someone about this yesterday. To understand how politics works, and we look at our politicians, you got to think about winning and losing. That's the way they look at it. I'm sorry, that's just what it is. The Republicans will use whatever strategy they can, be it playing on a racist base or doing whatever they're trying to do to create something in order to bring people out to vote. The DNC will do the same thing. They'll look at whatever strategy works best in order to win. So it's about winning to both parties. And then, the people, of course, we come out and vote. But what is the strategy? What does it look like? What can you play on in order to get people out to vote?
Right.
That's what it's about. And it's local politics, the same thing.
Go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry.
A couple of things. One is the DNC does not select candidates. Neither do PACs. The PACs, depending on after you get to the primaries and to the general, then depending on what race it is, not on a local level, they don't get involved until it's federal or statewide. So just to dispel that. So the other thing, too, with respect to the DNC and the fragmentation, that was an anomaly of the year. I think part of it as well, too, is the DNC hasn't had a strategist since Ron Brown, quite honestly. So, and excuse me, let me back up, and Howard Dean. Howard Dean in later years at least had a 50-state strategy, and we won during those times. And then when he was followed by Terry McAuliffe went more for the financing and fundraising. So, because that was what the need was, people felt at that time. And there really hasn't been anything since. And part of that reason is because during whoever is elected president, or when Obama was elected president as a Democrat, it was his responsibility to put someone in who assisted with bringing on other candidates. But he dropped the ball on that, quite honestly. And the Organizing for America, he said that his people set that up as a separate entity. So if you were ever started getting anything over the last 8 years or so, you had some things that were from DNC and some things that were from OSA. So there was that fragmentation, and quite honestly, the DNC is still trying to bridge that gap. And I think that puts us at a disadvantage. There is no cohesion, and as a result, we still have that fragmentation. That's why Bernie Sanders people haven't given over their list, and they're not going to do it, so they set up their own. So we're still further down that track with respect to fragmentation. So he's putting his money behind separate candidates altogether, and the DNC is doing what it can on a federal level or a statewide level. So we're I don't know when we're going to get over that gap. I think that Secretary Perez is trying to do that now, but I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very difficult.
So Karen, and just to wrap up your segment here. So again, what does that mean for our day-to-day communities? It's to me, it just seems like, game is being played on the top, and we're just left down here to sort of basically fend for ourselves. And maybe that has been the issue, that needs to be changed. Maybe we should be more on top taking more control, with our lives and our communities. And so I propose a question, the last question to you. What are some of the strategies that we can implement in our communities in 2018?
I think one of the biggest things politically is to show up. I don't understand, quite honestly, why we have to be kind of prepped up, and pumped up, I should say, to get out to vote. I don't get that. Why we seem to be one of the only cultures that need incentives to get up and vote whenever there's an opportunity, when we're disproportionately incarcerated by sheriffs and community leaders who we have the power to elect or unelect. Those things happen on a local level, and we seem to need prodding in order to do that. I think another thing we have to do is, on a socialization or a cultural standpoint, to prop up and get the economic empowerment so that we have some strategic advantage. I think we have to start banking black. I think we have to start buying black, and I think we have to start investing in our own community by showing up to vote. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that it has to be, 100%. I'm talking black and brown. We have to stop this kind of, segmentation and buy into, the GOP's current dialogue of trying to pit us against our Latino brothers and sisters. We got to stop that. They're afraid of us. And the economic power of African American and Hispanic people is the leverage. They need us in order to survive. And if we don't start understanding our consumer power and the billions that we spend and leverage that, let's figure out a way to leverage that.
Karen, can you repeat that, please? Can you repeat? I think you made a very important statement. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I can remember it, but I think that part of what it is that
the leverage, Karen, the leverage.
The leveraging of African American and the Hispanic dollar is key, I believe, for 2018 and beyond.
Okay.
Buy brown, bank brown, and vote in brown interests.
Right.
That linkage, because they need us more than we need them, but we're so fragmented.
That's it.
And they want to keep us divided. Within our own cultures, with cross-culturally, they want to keep us divided. But think about it. It's the browning of America is what they're most afraid of. That's what Make America Great Again means. You had Roy Brown talk about the best times of America is when we had slavery. He just televised the agenda.
Exactly. Right.
And we flipped it.
Right.
And we flipped it. He told you what they're thinking about. They got Barry coming back on Sirius XM so he can expand his base. They've got Breitbart News and Fox News, and we no longer even have BET. What do we have? They're taking Roland Martin's show off of TV One at the end of this year. Leverage our voice. There's a Color of Change petition to get Roland's show back on. Your show, my show. We've got voices out here that need to be heard. Joe Madison and the rest. We need to leverage our collective resources to make sure we have a seat at the table. And as Shirley Chisholm said, if there's no seats for you, bring a lawn chair. But you make sure you're at the table.
All right, Karen. Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap you. I think we're going to wrap you up. But we appreciate your voice and chiming in on our conversation today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that was Dr. Karen McCray from Washington, D.C., and I think she chimed in on a lot of. What did you think about? I'm trying to bring you in, Kathy.
Well, she brought up some very good topics. We were talking about that not too long ago, about the spending dollar of the of African Americans. We spend a lot of money, and it just brought to mind the bus boycott. The bus boycott wouldn't have worked, one, if they weren't all together in it. So that's that. To piggyback on that, let's talk about the politics. What Jamal was saying is true. Some people are jaded with the Democratic Party. Now, they're not going to go over to the Republican because that's crazy.
Right.
But the median, there's no median. So my suggestion is we have to revamp from the bottom, from the local, and then go up to the echelons, because then we can't keep going the same route, because then the jadedness doesn't disappear. If we just keep piggybacking on who they give us, then, people are still going to be like, well, you didn't really give me a choice. It's the lesser of two evils.
Right.
So we need to start putting our own people out there. And my whole thing is, if they don't win, at least the fact that we brought somebody,
right,
and we put their name out there, people know them, that's a start. Mm-hmm. Because the next time around, they probably will win, because they're out there. People know that we're grassroots organizing, and that we want this person in office. Right. So we have to start from the local level, get our people in the door, get the foot in the door first, and then we're not going to win everything, but we're not going to lose everything either.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's what has happened over the years. I've seen it in my lifetime. I mean, at one point, you had so many different community organizations, you had national organizations, and you had the president, you had the Democrat and Republican Party, but it was almost but the more power was with the people, right, with the community, and then, sure, you have the president. But then I saw, even in my lifetime, how things was switching around. It was like, no. The Democrats, Republicans, Democrats. I mean, those were our only political voices, which we're finding out all that's backed by money. And so what happened, it gave us less and less power. And I think the purpose I look at 2017, I think it's a catalyst. I think it's a way to say the masquerade party is over, mm-hmm, and we need, to take matters in our own hands, mm-hmm, in terms of our lives, because that's what it comes down to. I mean, when you can't pay your rent, mm-hmm, who's going to suffer? That's who's going to suffer. So, anyways.
Yeah, and what you're saying, Democrat and Republican, we talked about divide and conquer and all this other stuff. A lot of the conversations I try to have with individuals is that, and I tell them, I'm like, honestly, Democrat Party, I'm done. Republican, I'm done. And when I'm in a conversation and you think about it in the past, you have to think about what I said earlier: win, lose. When you understand winning and losing, the word just winning and losing, then you just understand politics and you understand the parties. So when you look at a Republican Party, they are trying to win. Okay, so whatever they're going to do, they're going to try to create something to win. Democrats are doing the same thing. But you ask yourself, there's these two parties using two different strategies, applying to two different bases, divide and conquer. They're dividing up the country. Like she just said earlier in regard to, Make America Great Again. It was good when slavery. Do we even know that he really believes that? We don't know, because a lot of it is just the reaction of what they're going to get from a base, right, by saying it. Everything that these politicians do a lot of time, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of the things that they do is a strategy. When they speak, it's a strategy. Right. The reaction that they get is creating a sentiment that they can play on in order to move something forward. Now, what people don't want, and I say, like a broken record, I talk about this all the time, is please go back to the 1969 article when the Black Panthers and the Young Patriots came together, which was a racist group, the Young Patriots, and the Black Panthers came together to fight social oppression, and they made friends, and they moved the issue forward, and that then the leader of the Black Panther Party got killed right after that. But the Black Panthers and the racist folks that came together to fight social oppression for jobs and housing and all this other stuff. That's the dangerous thing that this country does not want. That's what when politics and this Democrat Republican stuff, we need to get past that and start talking about what is it that's going to bring us together with them, because we can say, okay, we need to fight for black and brown and all this other stuff. We do. But at the same time, we need to be talking to them too. We need to be sitting there talking to these guys flying the stars and bars and saying they're racist and all this other stuff. We need to be in the room with these guys too to be able to understand what it is that's going to bridge that deal. Because if we can't bridge it, the United States is always going to be divided. And by being divided, it serves the interests of those parties that are creating this sentiment like Trump. Because at the end of the day, people, please go back to the 1989, 1990 article where he said, because Trump has always been a liberal, he's always been a Democrat. People forget that. When he said in 1989 that if I ran for president, I would run in a Republican because I can say whatever I want to say and they would believe it. That's what he said, and I would win. He said that in 1989. And people just dismiss. You gotta just read it. That's what I'm saying. This is where it shows you that it is strategy. Like the things that we're being emotional about, a lot of the things that he's saying. But this is what's being put out there. A lot of this stuff it's all strategy. And now you see what's happening. And this is where, in the Democrats, they have a strategy too. And what they play on and what they say, not to say it's just right, whatever. I'm not taking a position on anything that they're saying, but what they're doing is strategy in order to invoke emotion and all the other things like out of us so that we will vote for that individual. Like with Obama. You know, they talk about, you know, the yes we can and all this other stuff. That was strategy. Not to say it was great, but I'm just saying it's a strategy to play on everyone to say, okay, this is what's going to rile everyone up so that they get out there and vote. It's a strategy to win. Now, then you have to use your critical thinking to say, now we were there and we won. Then you have now you have to say what happens after that. Because that's what happens in the local politics. That happens everywhere, where everyone says, "Oh my God, this person came in and he was this person or she was this person, and once they got in, they changed." You hear about that all this in the '60s, all the way to now. They always say politician comes in there, we think they're going to do something, and then they get in there and they're not the same person. Oh, they're changed now. They're this, they're that. That's because it's strategy. They were trying to win. So then you try to win, you get in, and once you get in, then you are wrapped around the political system that moves you in the direction of what is in the interest of that political system. That's it. So again, I know those out there that work in the political system, because these are the ones that I talk to that are frustrated with it, that work in, City Hall or work in Sacramento. These are the ones that will tell you, that aren't elected but work there. They will tell you their frustration of the process because they've worked in it for so many years. They're hungry for the change, but the sad part is that a lot of them are afraid to speak out because, again, they have livelihoods and they're not going to say anything. They're just going to be like, okay, I work for the city, I can't say this. Or LAPD officer that says, okay, I can't say this because it's going to affect my livelihood, but I don't like it and it needs to change. So, okay, that's my rant. That's my rant.
Well, on the on your ending of what you're saying, let's take a little bit of a pause here. We're going to be calling Lauren Fofana next, and she's in Atlanta, Georgia, and she's a business owner. So we want to see what she has to say about the upcoming 2018 in our communities. So we're going to take a little bit of a pause right now. Hi, everybody. We're back here with Miss Lauren Fofana. We have called her in from Atlanta. She's a business owner and also CEO of Step Academics, a tutorial a tutorial program in Atlanta and also in New York City. So here is Lauren Fofana. Hold on. Okay, Lauren?
Yes.
Okay. Here you go.
Well, it's afternoon where you all are.
Right.
Yes. Well, good afternoon, Los Angeles.
Well, good afternoon, Lauren. We have Jamal here, and also we have Kathy. And, we just wanted to have you chime in on, what's happening there in the South, in Atlanta, and also what do you think as a business owner in our community, what are some of the strategies we can implement in our communities in 2018 to make it more thriving and more prosperous?
Well, I would say that the state of affairs in Atlanta pretty much mirrors what is going on in all of our communities, especially our underdeveloped communities, underutilized communities across America. And I think that that's a lot of uncertainty. There's some fear-based things going on. And then on the other hand, some people are guardedly optimistic. Because as an oppressed people, we have been there and done that. We've learned to be resilient. And as a result, I think that there is a turning toward the awakening to the renewal of personal responsibility.
Mm. And what do you mean by personal responsibility?
I mean that it's we don't need to step outside of ourselves. We are who we are waiting for, and I don't think we need to step outside of what we can do on an individual basis to contribute to the kind of community that we want to live in, the kind of community, the kinds of examples that we want to set so that our children will know when they are old enough and it is their turn, they've had us as examples. So it's kind of like each one reach one, but it's our personal responsibility to create what we want to have happen in our lives, and certainly with more relevancy, immediate relevancy in our communities.
So, what do you think we should be focusing on? Education, economics. I mean, if you had some focus in Atlanta or even in your own business, what would you be focusing on in 2018?
Well, obviously it's education. I've owned Step Academics. I'm the founder of Step Academics, and it began in 2002, and of course now we're going into 2018. We provide academic support to students who are at risk. So education is, I think, the umbrella from which covers everything. Education within our schools, but for those of us that are not likely to go back into the schoolhouse because of age, skill-based training, I think, is very important. And I think that we need to think along the lines of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, in turn, supports the community development. So you look at your community and you see what it lacks and what it needs. Mm-hmm. And then you need to be authentic about it. You need to be about the business of saying what you mean and doing and meaning what you say, and then going about the business of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Did anybody want to? I'm sorry, Lauren. We're sort of short on time this evening, but we'll definitely get back to you. Jamal or Kathy, did you have anything?
No,
to
she has some great ideas. Yeah,
great ideas. Okay, all right, Lauren. Thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. It was nice meeting you all by telephone, and much success this evening.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.
Bye. Okay. So, we definitely got a little bit of a flavor of what's happening around the country. The last portion of our podcast, we're going to turn it over to Kathy Guyton, and she's going to give us some updates about what's happening here in our community.
So one of the most important things that we can do as a community is get active. However you can get active. I know a lot of us have families, have jobs, have things to do in their own lives, but you can't. My pet peeve is you cannot complain if you're not participating. So if you're not participating, then that means to me that you're okay with what's going on. So ways to get active. We have the neighborhood councils. There are 96 neighborhood councils in the county city of Los Angeles. The one that's closest to us where we are now is the Economic Congress West Area Neighborhood Council. But it's easy to find your own council. You just go to the cityofla.org website, click on neighborhood info, and you put your address in, and it'll give you all the neighborhood information. It'll give you your state senator. It'll give you your city council member. It'll give you what district you're in as far as electricity or Department of Water and Power. So all of this stuff that you need for better life, in addition to political information about, and as well, the neighborhood council. So I urge you to get active in that. The other thing is don't sleep on your local library. They have classes for everything, and a lot of them are online. For instance, I'm taking a Excel and Microsoft Word refresher course for free, as long as you have a library card. So you need to take advantage of some of the things that we have in our community. I think a lot of times we're so busy in our lives that we need to look up and see what's around us, because other people are benefiting from these. So why not us? So, be active, be aware of what's going on around you, because it's changing drastically every day, as what we were talking about before. And take care of yourself.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Well, I guess Jamal, do you have anything to add? Or I think we still have some minutes here.
Time left. How much time do we have left?
Let's see. Okay, we have 7 minutes. Yeah,
so
we're good.
We can, wrap it up a little bit.
Right.
Just to kind of back up what we heard from Atlanta. Of course, education is number one. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of the things we need to do. So I think we've got to really look at educating the American people, our people, on what's going on, so that we can move forward. We got to stop relying on the media, I should say, like the news that we think is the news, or whatever you want to call it. But we've really got to start doing our due diligence. We really got to get out there and start doing our research. We got to start reading. We got to start getting our empirical data so that we can understand what's really going on, as opposed to just relying on opinion. Because I think that's what's going on: opinion and emotion. You're just listening to what people are saying, and it's like we will take it for truth. I mean, we had a lot of emotion, a lot of things we were talking about here today, but at the end of the day, we do implore everyone who's listening to our show to go out there and do your research, do your due diligence. That's what we want to do to motivate you to do, is to just get out there and seek the truth. If you're hearing about what's going on, do your research, and you'll find it, and you'll say, oh, wow, this is what's really going on, as opposed to what is being, I guess, force-fed to you. I think that's what we're going on.
Yeah, we're going
force-feeding us all this garbage.
And to piggyback on what Jamal is saying, it is kind of scary that so many people rely on hearsay, what they hear, and not read up on it themselves. For instance, a lot of people, I use this, and I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but a lot of people believe everything that their pastor says as a word of God.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going there, but that's a perfect example. That's why you have the book there to read yourself, to get educated. So let's not just take everything as God-given. Let's, as Jamal said, let's read, let's educate ourselves. The internet is dangerous in some instances, but it's wonderful in a lot of cases, because it has all the information that you could possibly want to find out on there. So, be prudent and be cautious when you're looking at stuff. But the information is out there. All you need to do is find it.
Yeah, but the internet's not dangerous in regard to our show, though.
No, it's not. No, it's not dangerous.
No. So yeah, we're not dangerous.
We're not dangerous.
Yeah, we're not dangerous.
So, and on that note, let's push forward in 2018. It's going to be a great year and a lot of lessons learned this year. And we need to just continue to move forward and with pride and dignity. And most importantly, I think we need to unify, all over our community. So let me repeat this quote from Nelson Mandela, and it's all about attitude and strategies. There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. So on that note, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, everybody. And onward and forward in 2018.
Thank you.